Hi everyone. I am recording my lesson late. My parents are out on the patio listening to music extremely loud and talking. So just ignore the screaming in the background that you will hear for this lesson. I texted them and told them to turn down the music and stop screaming, but they don't listen. So moving on. Today we're going to be talking about peer pressure. Usually in class, we'll have this little graffiti wall where you'll write something on the board that you or someone you know were peer pressured to do. And then you would come up and you would write different things that you did because of peer pressure. If you don't know what peer pressure is, it's when you feel like you should do something because it's what your friends are doing. Obviously, we're not going to do that, but we would kind of do that in class. The question is peer pressure always negative? Like, is it always something bad? And the answer is no. I encourage you to think about some positive examples of peer pressure. Like, what is something that your friends would encourage you to do that would be for a good reason? Think. And I'll list them. First one is employment. Maybe they're kind of pressuring you to get a job. Next is college. Maybe you're going to go to college because that's what your friends are doing. Exercising, usually they'll kind of encourage you to come to the gym with them. Maybe they are avoiding drugs and alcohol. They're pressuring you to do things like that. Maybe they're encouraging you to join a study group, join a sport, volunteer, things like that. Obviously, these are all good things that they would be peer pressuring you to do. What do you think are the top 5 negative things that most teens are peer pressured to do? So, obviously not good, the positive peer pressure we just talked about, but what are 5 negative things that teens are pressured to do? First one is drugs and tobacco. Obviously, people are asked to do drugs, hit Juuls, things like that. Second is alcohol use, obviously underage drinking. Third one is stealing. They're kind of pressuring you to steal. They're pressuring you to bully other people, as usually people don't get number 4. And then the last one is they're pressuring you to like have sex. Like it's what your friends are doing, so you should be doing it too. Let's talk about direct versus indirect peer pressure. Direct peer pressure is when someone is trying to convince you to do something that you would not normally do. So they're directly trying to influence or pressure you into doing something. Indirect peer pressure is the pressure that results from being swayed to do something because the people you look up to are doing it. So this isn't like your friends and family, things like that. This is stuff you see on TV, hear in the radio, and advertising, and things famous or popular people do. So you're going to determine if this situation is direct peer pressure or indirect. You like the way style of gym shoes look on a popular basketball player. You want to get a pair so you look the same way. Obviously, that's indirect. That is you being persuaded because of the famous person. Your doctor says that your risk of diabetes increases if you do not exercise. That's direct. Your doctor is directly telling you you need to exercise. Your uncle tells you that he'll give you $15 for every home run you hit during the softball season. That is also direct. Your uncle is directly telling you that. Things like that. The next type of peer pressure we're going to talk about that I'm more concerned that you're aware of, especially for your test, is internal versus external peer pressure. So internal peer pressure is when the pressure or encouraging comes from within ourselves. So this would include things like our morals, our values, us being curious to do it. That's our internal feelings. Then external pressure is when the pressure or encouraging comes from someone or something else. So this would be things like your friends, your family, things you see in the media. Okay? Internal is from within ourselves. External is from friends, family, things like that. There's an assignment on Canvas today. You're doing internal versus external peer pressure. There's a chart. There's only 2. I'm only making you do 2 and not 3. So you would say having sex. What are 3 internal pressures? Like what would internally be happening that would pressure you to have sex? What are 3 external? What is a positive to having sex? 2 things. And then what is a negative to having sex? And then you're going to do the same thing for abstinence, which is obviously choosing not to engage in intercourse. So let's talk about what you can do if you are in a situation where someone's trying to peer pressure you and you don't want to do it. There's things called refusal skills. It's obviously what we say or we do to kind of refuse the situation. The first one is steer clear. Don't hang out with people or put yourself in a situation where you have to deal with it. If someone's trying to get you to do something you don't want to do, don't hang around those people. Ignore the suggestion. Obviously, this doesn't always work, but sometimes you can literally pretend that you didn't hear what they said, and that will work. However, obviously, sometimes people are going to ask you again and again and again, and then you are not able to ignore them all the time, but sometimes this could work. Give a reason why you don't want to. Make an excuse. You could say things like, I have a bunch of alcoholics in my family. I see how it affects them. I'm good. I get drug tested at my job. You think that this seems silly, but this is a very easy way for you to get out of situations that you're being peer pressured, especially when it deals with drugs and alcohol. My whole life growing up, I never drank. I just always told them, like, I have a bunch of alcoholics in my family, and usually they would back off. Become a broken record. So say the same thing over and over and over again, so that they know that you are being serious. No, I'm good. I don't want to. No, I'm not going to. No, thanks. No, stop asking me. Become that broken record. Make sure that you stick to your guns, because a lot of time what happens is they'll keep asking you and then you'll get annoyed and you'll be like, okay, I'll do it. But you need to make sure that you're sticking to what you wanted in the first place. And then the biggest one is leave the situation. If you're in a situation where someone's asking you, maybe you've used these other methods and they're not working, make sure you get out of that situation, find a ride, call your parents, etc. I'm sure like all of our parents obviously don't want us to be at parties and things like that, but they would be happy to pick us up if we were trying to avoid a situation that could put us in danger and things like that. Last one is team up with someone or be that person for someone else. A lot of the time, like people will try to peer pressure you. And if you feel like it's 1 against 4, you'll feel like you have to do it. But if you kind of back off and you have somebody there to like support you and be like, nah, stop asking them, like they don't want to do it, or you're that person for someone else, that can be helpful. Having someone back you up can be helpful because many voices is always better than one. So the question is, why do we do things that we don't want to do when we're pressured by our friends? Like we said, like, no, I don't want to, and then we still end up doing it anyways. Like, why do we do these things? First, we have that desire to fit in. Everyone else is doing it. Like, I should do it. Like, it'll make me cool. Like I said, it's what everyone else is doing. Maybe you have that curiosity, that internal pressure, like, well, they're doing it. I wonder what it's like. Like, maybe I should do it, things like that. And then also maybe you have that fear of being judged or made fun of if you don't do it. Obviously, they're going to start mocking you and things. And so you're like, well, I might as well do it so I don't have to deal with that backlash. I think this video is kind of funny. It's this girl that it's called social conformity. It's like a certain type of thing in psychology or whatever. And they did this test to kind of see how people conform to the group they're in. And it kind of relates to peer pressure.
To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone, simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beeps, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Thanks so much.
Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, what began as a random rule for this woman has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room. Here to explain what's going on in their brains is Jonah Berger of the University of Pennsylvania.
This sort of internalized form of herd behavior is part of what we call social learning. Starting at a very early age, when we see members of our group perform a task, our brains literally reward us for following in their footsteps.
When I saw everybody stand up, I felt like I needed to join them. Otherwise, I'm like excluded. Once I decided to go with it, then I felt much more comfortable.
Conformity is how we become socialized, but it can also cause us to develop bad habits or repeat past wrongs.
And it's why even this rebel, who wasn't standing for any of this nonsense, eventually joined the ranks. And the only thing more shocking than seeing how easily conformity affects the way you act is that similar forces are
Whatever. Okay. I think this video is kind of funny because it talks about how like you do conform to a group. So if you're hanging around these sort of people and they're doing it, then you're going to start doing it because they're doing it and things like that. So after this video in class, usually I'll pull back up the board where you guys wrote like what you were peer pressured to do. And we'll kind of talk about the different things that were written. But to sum up this lesson today, I just want to say this quote. We're talking about social conformity, how we tend to do things just because a group is doing it. But I think this quote speaks volumes. It says, "To be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." So it is a big deal when you are staying to yourself and you're staying true to yourself and making sure that you're not conforming to those things and you're sticking true to what you want and what kind of lifestyle you want to live. So anyways, make sure you do that assignment on Canvas. Hopefully you have a better understanding about peer pressure. I hope you guys have a great day. This was our last Unit 2 lesson, peer pressure. Thanks.